All right, we're back with Kevin Twit, and we're continuing the 5 questions series with 5 more questions. Kevin, there's a lot of pressure these days to incorporate creative media, visual art, video into our services. What do you think of its use? Do you guys use it in RUF or City Church?
We don't use any of it in RUF, really. We had a little debate recently at a conference that we did where the speaker wanted to use videos. It's really just not our mojo. I think a lot of the students and the campus ministers feel like it's maybe in our denomination been often used sort of to entertain or to substitute for bad preaching. Not saying, you know, that the example that I'm using from that conference, it was used in that way, but I don't know. In my context, it was kind of baby boomers trying to reach the youth, and it wasn't something the youth were doing. I know in other contexts that visual art is their culture and it's a way of expressing themselves, so I'm certainly open to that.
Sure.
It's not who we are. We tend to be much more simple, acoustic guitars, you know, put the words up on a screen or sing them out of a songbook, and yeah, much more bare bones, I think.
No doubt. You know, we always hear about the tension between the idea of worship as performance, worship as worship, you know, pure from the heart, all that. How have you navigated that in RUF and in Indelible Grace?
Yeah. When I was first starting to lead worship, I remember asking a pastor friend of mine about that, and he said, go ask, you know, told me 2 people to ask, and I asked one guy who had been a professional musician, Christian musician. He said, oh, I never really, you know, struggled with that. I didn't like that answer. I went and asked this other guy, Scott Rowley, who's now the pastor of Christ Community Church, and he said, I struggle with that every day. And I said, okay, well, that's good for me to know. But I'm trying to say this. Our focus should be on serving the congregation, serving the song. I think some of the baggage that professional musicians who start doing worship is they feel it's more spiritual to be invisible and not really to lead. A lot of people learn to play guitar because they're too shy to meet girls any other way, right? If you ever read Guitar Player magazine, every interview is that's why people start playing guitar. So then you put them up in front of people and want them to lead, and it's a very weird thing. And I think part of serving means overcoming that baggage, getting beyond what are people thinking about me as I stand up here, how can I serve them? And often it means doing stuff that feels like performance so that people can follow you, because you're the first emotional interpreter of this text when you're leading a song, and I don't want people to have to wonder what I'm trying to communicate.
Explain that phrase for us, the first emotional interpreter.
Yeah, well, it's like when you preach and you read your text. There's an interpretation even in the way you read it. I grew up in a liberal Episcopal church and became a lay reader. I knew that the sermon was never going to have the gospel in it. So all I could do was try to emphasize the text in a way that would bring out the meaning before the sermon. And I still try to think in that way, and I think even that way when I'm writing a tune to a hymn, what's the mood? How can I have a music that's going to helpfully reinforce that mood? And I think the same happens with singing.